latest build R57, I believe, and I'm going to show you some of the stuff that has changed with particles. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the Foliage tab, enable it, and before I work with any of these templates or anything, I'm going to just go ahead and show you how this is more or less working the same as it used to. I'm going to load in a preset of some sort. Let's see, I don't know, work for now. Clear that. Now I'm going to turn on shadows, and this has to allocate a bunch of extra memory and everything when we're working with shadows. There's also a new stencil buffer and a Z buffer, so there's a lot of new information being managed by the program. So there's some things that are not yet working. Undos will not work with Foliage yet. Switching the swap image will not work. Probably layers and things we still have to figure out. So those are some things to be aware of. I'm going to go ahead and paint with that, and you can see after a few seconds it adds that little bit of a shadow in there. The shadow is the post process. We do not have the post redraw like we used to have, which is a bit of a time saver. But we do still have a pixel filter as the post operation. It's sort of like an image processing filter that's applied afterwards, and that's when that shadow gets added in. It runs on the GPU, so it is fairly fast. We'll continue to tweak that as we go along to see how to get the best results out of it. Alright, so I'm going to, you'll notice that this is no longer a fog color. Any fog is going to be handled by the color Q button down there from now on. This is now the ambient color, which basically means it adds a light, kind of an all-around light, not a directional light, but it comes from every direction. And it's just a basic way of lightening up what it is you're drawing. So I'm going to go, you also have to select an amount of ambient color, not just setting the color by itself. So I'm going to set that to 64. Now you can see that has been lit up quite a bit by that orange ambient color. So that works a little bit different than it used to. Actually, it works about the same, but it is a different name on it anyways. So going to a 90% ambient color gives us an almost entirely object that's lit almost entirely with that color. Let's see, I'm going to turn off the shading option. And you can see without the shading, that is, let me turn off shadows for a moment. Without the shading, that is 100% that orange color. So anyways, I'll turn it about halfway, and you can still see some of the original color. And that's basically what we look like without any shading, without any shadows, or any of that stuff going on. We just basically look like this colored branches and stuff, one single, shading color. Alright, so now some options we have. We can turn shading on, and that'll give us sort of a directional light. It comes from the left hand side and gets darker on the right hand side. That is one option, but if I'm using shadows, I seem to think it gets too dark with them both on. So I'm going to use just shadows with that, and you can see it gives us a nice shading effect. And it's a little bit more realistic looking than the shading, I believe. You could use both at the same time if you want to. For me, it gets a little too dark, especially if you're not using this ambient. So, you use whichever you want. That's what the buttons are there for. Alright, so one thing you'll notice now is the more you draw on screen, the darker these shadows seem to get. That's because that Z buffer in there we have is persistent now. It means it's not just used the one time, allocated when the mouse goes down, and then freed when the mouse goes back up. It stays persistent while you're working on those drawings. So the more you paint, the darker these shadows are going to get, because there's more geometry, and the program's aware of the geometry inside the program, inside the memory. So if I draw something over here, it's going to be light still, lighter than over here, because there's not as much geometry over here as there is over here. There's like all these little sticks and things, and that's causing the shadows to be deeper and darker. So that's something to be aware of now, is shadows will get darker the more you paint on something, because there's just more branches and more sticks and stuff in the way. Even if you change settings to something else, it will remember the Z buffer. It will remember the shading buffer that we have in there. So we can paint in here, and you'll notice we're not drawing on top of that. We're drawing it like it was a three-dimensional object, and that new tree we draw is inside of this other object. So some of it goes behind it, some of it's in front of it, some of it's right in the middle of it. As you can see here, this little branch that was already here is in front of what we just drew behind there. Alright, I'm going to turn off the shading. I think that's too much shading for that. So that is one of the things you can do with the program. Now I said we have the color cue. That's how fog is going to be handled from now on. So let me turn that on. And as we know, this may change, but as we know from now, the color cue uses whatever color you have selected. So I'm going to select the bluish color here so you can see it. And I'm going to just draw something. And well, let me clear the screen now. Okay, so and let's see. As you can see, it's part of this object. Maybe not the best example. Let me use something a little denser. Get a better idea of what that's doing. Alright. I'm going to turn on the color cue. Okay. Here we go. As you see now, this is a three-dimensional shape, so whatever's further away is going to be foggier than whatever's close by. So you see some leaves that are green and some that are real blue. That's one way you can use it. When that starts really getting interesting is when you get into using these templates, or they'll probably just be called Z buffers or something in the future. So I'm going to click on this. It loads in that particular Z buffer. And I'm going to click right there and draw. And now I'm going to go back about here and draw. And as you can see, that gets a lot smaller. You also notice that the relationship of the blue changed between those two. Now that we're using this template, it's aware of this Z buffer, and it knows how far apart these things are. And it's aware that we have more than one tree in memory. And it's going to continue to update this. If we draw something really far away, well, that's not a good example. If we draw something really far away, though, let's see, right there, then these are going to get a little bit darker because it's adapting that dynamic range. The things that are farther away, the range between the things that are close and the things that are farther away is being adapted to. So now this thing in the foreground is really dark. Let's see, I have my caps lock key on. Alright, so the things in the foreground are darker and less foggy looking than the things in the background. And that is what using those templates or those Z buffers will do for you, on top of automatically handling the scaling for you. I haven't done anything special. The scale's handled automatically by that Z buffer back there. It's in memory. So that's one way to do scaling without having to mess around too much with remembering where things are, how big things are, how far away things are. It just does it for you automatically. It also handles the fog automatically. And it's a quick way to populate a scene without having to deal with things, what's in front of what and what's behind what. Alright, so let's see. You could also potentially put some grass in there, I suppose, if you want. Whoops. That. Let's see. Got some grass here. Weeds. Let's try a weed. No. There we go. And first time I click this, you can notice that that blue is going to go away because the depth cue is not turned on. This is a dynamic thing. It will it's calculated on the fly, so you don't have to you know what I mean. You can change it as you go along. For example, say I wanted it to be purple instead of blue, or maybe I want it to be more white, like it's disappearing into a real light fog bank or something. That will now go into a white color instead of a blue color, and it's all dynamic. Alright, so I'm going to turn off shading, and we use a larger size for that grass, and I think I'll try to paint some grass here. Notice that everything's being Z-buffered for us. Well, give or take. See what we can do with that. Alright, there you go. Acting a little funny because I'm running on battery power. I got one of my CPU cores dedicated to the video capture. It's not very optimized yet, you know. So it is acting a little funny on me right now. As you can see, I can quickly fill in a scene with this grass. And etc. Alright, I think I'll put one more tree in there. Try something completely different ligustrums. Use a different ambient color. Let's see, I'll turn off shading so we can see it real good and clear. Let's see. And I'll put it right there. As you can see, it's being whoops, I forgot one more thing. I gotta keep that color cue on. Need to make that a little more self-aware. Alright, so not seeing much of this because we already have so much geometry in the scene as it is, but I think you get the idea. That's about it for now. Something to play with. Oh, like I said, the undo kind of messed up. Let me see. Let's see if I can demonstrate this. Well, if I swap screens with J, here's one thing that's wrong. It still thinks that scene's back there, and when I paint, it brings it back. So that's a bit of a bug. So what you do in that case is you just got to clear the screen for now. Clearing the screen will reset all the buffers. It will let's see, make sure all the Z buffers and all the template buffers and all the shadow buffers are cleared. I said undoing doesn't work. So I'll undo this last one. And it looks like it works, but when you go to paint in there, you can see in what I just drew there, right in this area, you can see some of the previous branches that I undid were still kind of in there. And it may not look like it directly, but it is there. Let me undo all of this. As I see there, as you see, as I draw, you can see there, and I just drew that and it repainted all that stuff. So this is all stuff that has to be done. We have to have a new undo stack that handles all the new buffers and stuff. So it's just something that has to be coded for. So that's about it for now. Hope that's some useful information.